What is going on? We do Transformations Coach. In this video, we're going to be talking about some objections training. All right. Now, I'm super stoked to this, and I put this together based on some of the things that we've been learning and the latest strategies that we've been implementing inside of our coaching business. So I'm going to dive into the training as I do. Okay. So this training is going to cover three things. First, it's going to cover overcoming objections to enrollment. Then we're going to break down the most three common objections that you guys are going to get. And then finally, I'm going to teach you how to overcome those objections. And the most three common objections we're going to have here are: I don't have the money. I'm going to have to think about it. I'm going to have to talk to my spouse. I'm going to give you a framework for overcoming those objections. So when you're on the call with your client, you'll be able to refer to this 5-step framework. Okay, so the reason that it's super important to understand objections is because we need to know that 1 out of 5 people are going to enroll automatically, which means that there's 4 people that are going to say no out of every call that you get on. And a lot of us, as we do transformations coaches, are hoping that every single person is going to say yes, but we all know that's just not the case, right? Unfortunately, the reason that a lot of people are in the situations that they're in is because they've been making excuses for themselves up to this point. And so they might have reached out to you, or they might have been expressing interest, or even been willing to book a call with you. But just because they reached out and they're willing to book a call doesn't mean they're ready to purchase. So our intention with objections training is to make sure that we go above and beyond to overcome those objections. And we really work through some of these adversities that people are going to have on the phone. Like, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I'm going to have to talk to my spouse. And again, these are the 3 most common objections that you are going to get on a sales calls. Now, if 1 of every 5 people are going to purchase, that means 4 people are going to say no. And if we can learn how to flip 2 of those 4 people into a yes, our business is going to expand rapidly. The better that we get, the goal is to close 3 out of 5 calls. Please write that down. Our goal over the course of the next 3 to 6 months is to get ourselves to a place where we close every 3 out of every 5 calls. Now, if you think about this, the goal is obviously to book calls with qualified prospects and to get more leads on the phone so you can get more 21-day challenges. But one of the really great ways to do that is to focus on overcoming objections. Because let's say you can only book 3 calls per week and you're able to enroll 2 out of those 3 clients in 21-day challenges, we're in a really good spot. Okay. So let's first understand why people say no. Okay. A lot of people are going to say no to you because people are conditioned to say no to salespeople, right? People are also conditioned to make excuses, right? We're conditioned to resist. We're conditioned to be like, oh, I got to check with my spouse because that means we don't have to commit to anything, right? And so the opportunity to really start coaching them happens on the call. You need to understand that. The first opportunity to become their coach is on that initial call. So as soon as somebody's on the call with us, they've basically trusted us enough to get on the phone. So it's our opportunity to work through some of these objections with them so they can overcome their own excuses and start to transform their life. Okay. And if we do a great enough job of this, they'll become a We Do Transformations 21-day challenger and potentially become an Herbalife distributor where they can change their life and potentially be able to change their own family's life through health and fitness because of what you do on the call. So the enrollment call is the first opportunity to become their coach. It's the first opportunity to work them through their objections, to overcome their excuses. Because listen, like if we just tell them like, hey man, the reason that you're overweight is because you keep buying McDonald's. We can't just straight up say that because we're going to offend people. But with the objections training, our goal is to make them aware that they're making excuses without arousing their defenses. Because if we can make sure that we're not arousing their defenses, we're going to get a lot more people to say yes to us. So I'm going to give you the rule for sales calls. Okay. Here's the rule. Write this down. The rule is at the end of every sales call, you leave with a yes, a no, or a deposit. All right. That's the rule. At the end of every call, I'm going to leave with a yes, a no, or a deposit. All right. Those are the rules. So if you're on a call with somebody and they're like, you know what, this all sounds great, Brian, but I'm going to have to start next week. That's not an answer we're willing to accept. It's either a yes, a no, or a deposit. So what we're going to use is we're going to use this training today to figure out which one of those it's going to be. So what are we going to do? Are we going to get a yes, or are we going to get a no, or are we going to get a deposit? So if they're like, oh, Brian, this all sounds great, but I'm going to check with my spouse. That's awesome. That's also not an answer that we're willing to accept as a coach. It's not a yes, a no, or a deposit, right? Is it going to be a yes? Is it going to be a no? Or are we going to get a deposit? So let's talk about I'll think about it. They're like, you know what, Brian, this all sounds great, but I'm going to have to think about it. That's cool. That's not an answer we're willing to accept. We accept a yes, a no, or a deposit. And if you're accepting prospects at their first no, this is why your business isn't growing. Because people are conditioned to say no. So you're literally only collecting the 1 of every 5 people that were going to say yes to anything anyways, right? So your goal is to flip some of the people that are saying no. Yes, no, or deposit. I'll get back to you tomorrow is not a yes, no, or deposit. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a client's like, yeah, it sounds really good. It sounds really good, Brian, but I want to start next month. I just got to check my budget. So I'm like, okay, cool. So what you're saying is that the program sounds awesome and you want to do the challenge, but you want to start next month. Is that correct? And they're like, yeah, like I love it. And I really do want to work with you. And I'll tell you, like, I do want to work with you. So, I do want to do it. So, but I just got to start next month. And you're like, okay, cool. I love it. So I'm excited to work with you. So I'll tell you what, I only take a certain amount of clients per month. So what I'll do is I'll get you to put down a $50 deposit right now as a representation of your commitment to the program. Then next month, I'll message you, we'll get you rocking and rolling, and we'll move forward and we'll start the transformation challenge from there. Does that sound good? And he's like, yeah, that sounds good. That's awesome. Here's another example. Let's say he's like, you know what, man? It sounds great, but I really have to think about it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So John, what is it that you need to think about exactly? And then they'll be like, yeah, I'm just not sure if it's the right time. It's a lot of money. And then you're going to be like, okay, cool. Well, John, at the start of the call, you mentioned that you really, really struggle with burning body fat and lean muscle, and you tried a bunch of different fad diets. So do you think the reason that you lose weight is that because you're afraid to commit to an actual structured plan? He's like, yeah, but I still have to think about it. I'm like, okay, listen, man, I totally get it. I appreciate that you need to think about it. So I only do take a limited amount of spots in my program. So what I'll get you to do is I'll get you to put down a $50 deposit right now as a representation of your commitment to your own goals. Then tomorrow, if you don't want to move forward, that's awesome. If you want to move forward, that's amazing. I'd love to help you out. If not, I'll just send you your money back. No questions asked. I just need to see that you're actually committed to making a transformation. Is that cool? And then they're like, that's actually not cool, Brian. I'm still going to have to think about it. Then that's a no, right? Okay, that sounds good, brother. You know what? Right now might not be the best time for you, and I totally appreciate that. Why don't I hit you up for the next transformation challenge, and I'll see where you're at. And if you're still struggling with your weight loss goals, maybe I can get you in the next challenge. Is that cool? Yep. Okay, great. Boom. Now, why do you think that's the better move here? Like, I would rather get a no than them being like, oh, I'll come back tomorrow. The reason I'd rather get a no is because now I'm not wasting my time wondering whether or not this prospect's going to enroll, right? I basically want to either get a yes, no, or deposit because I don't want to spend any time being like, I wonder if John's going to get back to me, right? Being abundant is having the ability to walk away and choosing to use that ability if your prospect isn't committed, okay? Now, for We Do Transformations, we have a 5-step process to overcoming any objection, all right? Now, step number 1 is to isolate their objection. Well, you want to write this down. Step number 1 is to isolate their objection. Step number 2 is use feel, felt, found. I'm going to explain what these all means. Step number 3 is you want to give them a case study. Step number 4 is you want to ask for enrollment. And step number 5, you want to ask for the deposit. Okay, so let's talk about step number 1 is to isolate their objection, okay? So we isolate their objection, feel, felt, found, give them a case study, ask for enrollment, ask for deposit. So step number 1, isolate their objection. You basically want to make sure that they're not taking action, and the only reason is because of the objection that they mentioned. So they're like, yeah, the program sounds great. I'm just going to have to start next week because, I can't afford it. So basically what you need to do is you need to make sure that that's the only reason. So what you say is, so John, what you're saying is that the program is fantastic and you want to do it, but you're not sure if you can afford it. Is that correct? He's going to be like, yep, that's correct. Okay, so the only reason he isn't moving forward is because he doesn't have the money. I've isolated the objection. Then I want to use the feel, felt, found. Basically, I want to say that I understand how he feels. A lot of my best clients felt the same way. And what we found is by making a different decision, they got a different outcome. Here's what that looks like. It's a way of using language to appreciate how they're feeling, talk about how my clients felt the same way, and let them know that what we found by making a different choice. So what you say is this. You know what, John? I can totally appreciate how you feel. In fact, most of my best clients felt the same way when they first started. They felt like they didn't have the finances to commit. But what we found is by taking action, we got a different result. So here's what that said. Here's what it looks like. So Jane, what you're saying is you don't have the money to commit. I can totally appreciate how you feel. In fact, a lot of my best clients felt the same way before they invested in me. But what we found is by cutting back spending money on Starbucks and Tim Hortons every day and all the things that you mentioned to me on this call, we were able to actually save that money and invest in the program, which helped them lose the weight. Does that make sense? So if we cut back some of the money that you're spending on fast food, we actually saved money on your groceries and we invested in losing that weight loss. Would that make it more affordable for you to get started today? Right. So feel, felt, found. So let's use another thing. Okay. So Last pizza nuggets, and then I'm going to go into how to overcome every specific objection with this framework, is when you guys drop the price and then you tell them the price of the program, that's where the work really starts, right? So don't assume that the sales call is over as soon as you talk about the price. Because when you drop the price and you tell them how much it costs, that's where the call actually begins, okay? This is where you need to get ready to work through objections. And the We Do Transformations coaches that practice their sales calls, that get good at overcoming objections, are going to become masters of this game, okay? Now, if you're unwilling to ask them to enroll, then you're going to continue to struggle for money. And they're going to continue to stay stuck in their fitness journey. And like, you could literally transform somebody's life because you're not willing to accept their excuses on the call, okay? You can change that by like working through people's objections and getting uncomfortable with yourself and being willing to have those awkward conversations with people. That nobody likes having these awkward conversations. But your prospect doesn't like being overweight. That's why they're on the call with you. And so it's our job to make them aware that if they invest, you're going to help them transform their life, right? When somebody says, I don't have the money, and you're like, I can totally appreciate that. So what you're saying is you don't have the money to invest. Is that correct? Okay, so let me just ask you, John, if you had all the money in the world, is this something you'd be willing to invest in? Okay, so is it that you don't have a card you can put it on? Is it that you don't have savings, or is it something else? Like, that's an awkward question to ask. But if you're willing to have these conversations, you're going to make a lot more money. You're going to change more lives. And if you're unwilling to work through objections, then your client is going to stay in the same place and you're going to stay broke, which is a lose-lose situation. So if a client invests in your program, that means that you make more money, they get to transform their life, your business grows, it's a win across the board. So again, the enrollment call, the 15-minute consult, is your first opportunity to become their coach. Don't accept their no's. If you're just looking for the 1 in every 5 calls, that's like a layup, you're going to continue to struggle for money. So what you want to do is you want to get good at converting some of the people that were going to say no into yeses. And if you can just like not accept the no, right? If you just not accept the no, you're just not willing to, like, you're like, they say no, and then that's where the fun begins. When you actually have that mindset shift, you're going to start to make a lot more money and you're going to transform a lot more people's lives. And like the goal is to really increase the amount of clients you have coming in and increase the amount of phone calls that you're turning into clients, which means you're going to increase the amount of the size of your business and you're going to increase the amount of lives of people that you're going to change. So on this enrollment call, you either sell them on why they need to change their life, or they sell you on their excuses. So you either sell them on why they need to change their life, or they sell you on their excuses, right? And so every single call, write this down. You're going to leave with a yes, a no, or a deposit, okay? If you let them off the call without making a choice, the amount of clients you're going to enroll will be substantially lower than you want. So it's a yes, a no, or a deposit. The 5-step framework that you're going to use is: number 1, isolate their objection. Number 2, you're going to use feel, felt, found. Number 3, you're going to use a case study. Number 4, you're going to ask for enrollment. And number 5, if that doesn't work, you're going to go for a deposit. You want to leave every single call with a yes, no, or a deposit. So I want you to book phone calls and practice overcoming objections and understand that when you talk about the price, that's where the call begins. If you can treat it like a game and almost try to like work through their objections like a game, I promise you're going to make a lot more money. You're going to change a lot more people's lives. Guys, and sometimes we go on hot streaks and we literally enroll 5 for 5 sales calls. And sometimes we go on dry streaks and we're literally 0 for 7. So understand that good sales is about moving from call to call without losing enthusiasm. Sometimes we need to come back and rewatch a video like this. Sometimes we need to watch some of the other sales trainings or do some role play videos. But consistently review this unit, consistently rewatch this video, consistently relearn, consistently ask questions, consistently try to get better at sales. Sales is one of those things that's ever evolving, and it's a skill set that you can develop. And when you develop the skill set of sales, you're going to start to transform a lot of people's lives, okay? So guys, even for me, somebody that's been doing this for 10 plus years, sometimes I'll still hit dry streaks myself and I have to go back and revisit my own sales trainings, get better and relearn and revisit. It's just a skill. It's a fundamental skill that needs to learn, but it's one that pays off with massive dividends. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. Let's go out there and dominate. I'm actually going to be breaking down every single objection for you. So in the next videos, I'm going to teach you how to overcome the wife objection solo, the money objection solo, and the time objection solo. The main purpose of this video, write this down, is we don't leave calls unless it's a yes, no, or deposit. Let's get it.